Hello, this is Monica Volkmar, and you're listening to Movement Detectivery. First, I have a very important question for you. When you go to the toilet and you see the toilet paper roll is facing the wrong way, so like the part that you pull to get your toilet paper is facing the wall and it's behind the roll instead of hanging out in front of the roll, do you feel compelled to flip it around? Does it irritate you? Or do you just use it as is? Me personally, I'm just thinking about this because I was in the toilet just before stepping on here. And I wouldn't say that it irritates me, but I definitely have a compulsion to flip the toilet paper around. And part of me feels like I'm doing a good service to humanity because it's so much easier to pull the toilet paper down when it's hanging out in front, not behind the roll. But anyway, that's just me. What do you think? Let me know. Shoot me a message on Instagram or something. Let me know. But actually, the real question I have for you today, this is much more important, maybe. Can you say with utter confidence that your shoes are supporting your body's needs for healthy movement? How many times have you asked ChatGPT about what are the best shoes? Do you know what shoes work for your body? Have you ever been curious about that? Today, I want to talk to you about how to choose a pair of shoes that works best for your body and your goals, because it's a question that I get a lot, and I happen to have thoughts and opinions and hopefully some useful tips for you. But first, I want to tell you a story. I promise this relates in a roundabout way. So if you know me, I'm a pretty naive and impressionable and enthusiastic person in most areas of life, meaning that if I hear someone give advice that they think this is the best way to do this or that, I definitely want to try it. And if I hear someone that I know and trust and respect talking about something like a food or a course or an activity or a book that they like, then I want to get on that action too. I can't help it. It's how I'm wired. Sometimes this works out really, really well for me, and sometimes it leads me down a doom-ridden rabbit hole that, while it may lead to some really interesting learning experiences, is actually taking me farther away from listening to what is correct for me. Because little do I know, I've been hijacked by someone else's opinions and preferences and ideas. So, for example, I have probably wasted about a decade of my life, probably more, believing that intermittent fasting is a path that was worth exploring simply because I heard one person that I respected talking about how much they got out of it. And then I heard more people talking about it. And I tried it. It was a really bad time, but I was so bought into making it work that I wasn't really listening to the truth in my body that it was not working for me. I had symptoms like brain fog. I was crying for no reason. I had extreme fatigue, especially mental fatigue. I was moody. This was when I was dancing, and I was getting injured a lot, and I didn't put the pieces together. But because I was so bought into intermittent fasting as a paradigm that was good, maybe even morally good, I ignored that these were symptoms at all. And I deliberately ignored them. You know, that thing that you can do where you can so much not want to listen to the truth that you deliberately ignore something to the point where you legitimately forget to pay attention to it. Like doing my taxes every year. But it was useful so that I could keep on doing the thing that I believed was the best, because other external sources I was respecting were really in on the intermittent fasting bandwagon. And at the end of the day, I think the best mindset I've learned is to just trust that even if I'm led down a destructive path, my naivete and curiosity and enthusiasm, they usually lead to the best learning. I just wish I was better at listening to my body from the get-go and not listening to the external cues. But that said, if I didn't follow my naivete and curiosity and enthusiasm trifecta and CE, I would have never discovered some things that truly resonate with who I am, like anatomy and motion, which was also something that someone I respected and trusted was talking about. And without doing any research, I just jumped right in because it really resonated with me. And this has actually led me to be doing work with bodies that I really, really love. And also has inspired a lot of what I'm going to be talking about in today's episode about shoes, which leads me into what we're going to be discussing today. How to choose the right shoes for your body. This is without a doubt the most common question I get from clients, and sadly most people aren't really interested in my answer. Why? Because the answer that I have isn't a prescription to look at a shoe list, like I know some course providers have. This reminds me of a conversation I had recently with someone, and they were asking me, so what do you think about these shoes or these shoes and these shoes? And they were telling me about their experience they had working with a practitioner from a course provider I will not name because I'm not into talking bad about different courses and paradigms or practitioners. I think everything is useful in its own way at its own time. So I'm not going to say any shit about this company in general, just that maybe the way that this one practitioner of this company handled this circumstance wasn't ideal. So this person I was talking to, they said that they had gone through an assessment with this practitioner who was very highly renowned from this very well-known movement education therapy company. And they didn't find it that useful. They didn't feel a lot of change in their body in the session. And then at the end of I think it was an online session together, he or they, I can't remember if it was a he or a she, to be honest, they asked, so what about shoes? Do you think that'd be helpful for me to consider? And this practitioner said, here's a list of shoes that our company recommends. Have a look and get one of the pairs. So my friend, they looked at the list and were like, so do you have, there's a lot of shoes on this list. Which ones do you think would be good for me, having done this assessment with me? And the practitioner said something like, any one of them will do. It doesn't matter. And this person that I was chatting with, they said that felt really not helpful. As you can imagine, just being told, it doesn't matter, I've done this assessment with you, and here's a list of shoes. I think there's a better way of doing it. And just to be clear, I don't have a recommended shoe list because I know it in my bones that no one can determine what's the best shoe for me or for you than you can for yourself. Me for me, you for you. We are our own best source of information about making decisions for our body. It's just that it's hard to understand what information to interpret to make those decisions is. It's really tempting to pull a curious, naive, enthusiastic Monica move and be guided to someone else's favorite pair of shoes based on their arbitrary set of standards for what a good shoe should be. Maybe, for example, you've been guided by a barefoot shoe person that you should be wearing a more minimalistic, zero-drop, thin-soled shoe. But is that actually working for you? It might be working for the person recommending them, but it also might not be working for them. That person might not be putting connections together that the shoe that they're wearing, while it might jive with some belief system they have about what's best for a body, it might not be meeting their body where it's at right now. We just don't know where that recommendation is coming for. Maybe you've been guided to wearing those big, pillowy, soled, cloud monstery shoes because you saw that, maybe, I don't know what the name of the movie was, but it was the documentary about the guy who ran across Australia, and he got these custom-made, big, cushiony shoes, and he talked about how good and cushiony they were and how much they helped him. But think about it. He was running across Australia hundreds of kilometers a day, and he probably just needed the cushiest shoes possible. Um, but are you actually running hundreds of kilometers a day? Were those even the best shoes for him, or was it just that psychologically it helped him? Or maybe because someone with foot pain said they were the only thing that helped them. Those, I think what's all the rage are those Hoka shoes that have a bit of a rocker and big cushy soles in them. People with plantar fasciitis, I've seen on some online discussion groups about plantar fasciitis that those are the most popular recommended shoes. But are they actually benefiting you and your unique biomechanics? Or are they limiting your movement potential? What should we even be looking for in a shoe? And who are you going to ask for that information? Everyone's going to have their own opinion about this. Is there anyone who's truly objectively on your side who can read your body? Maybe you think you go to a podiatrist because they are foot experts, and surely they're going to take an objective view of your foot and your body, and they're going to give you something that really is helpful. But their businesses happen to be profitable only because of their ability to prescribe orthotics, and their bias financially might not really be aligned with your actual needs and goals. And I'm not even exaggerating this. I remember hearing a story from a chiropractor friend of mine during an anatomy and motion course. And he had described to me how after learning anatomy and motion, which is a lot to do with how the feet actually move in pronation and supination in 3 dimensions and how that integrates with the rest of the body in the gait cycle. After integrating this coursework with his clients, and having the insight that if he could help people with their foot mechanics, they wouldn't need his orthotics, he said that he lost thousands of dollars in profits because he could no longer ethically prescribe orthotics because he had a better solution, which was to give the power back to the people to help their feet so they didn't need an insole in their shoes anymore. So something you should know is that most people making recommendations for what shoes to wear probably have some kind of personal bias or financial skin in the game as their reason for recommending them. And that's okay, but we just need to be aware of that. So I don't have anything to sell you on, and I honestly wish that I did, because then maybe I could make a little bit of money with some sponsorship deals here. I don't personally have any pair of shoes that I recommend. I have shoes that I like the best for me, but I know that those aren't going to be the best shoes for you. But what I've learned to be true is that everything that you need to choose the best pair of shoes for you is already within you. Your body is the best guide you have to choosing your next best pair of shoes, regardless of what your goals are for them. But I think if you're listening to this and you identify as a bit of a movement detective, i.e. a person who likes to figure things out for themselves and understand the mysteries of how the body works and how you can help it with low invasive, minimal interventions, I think you'll want to feel empowered and excited to make choices for your body based on information you get from it directly. And I think you already know that no external source can possibly know what it's like to live in your body. Only you do. Therefore, that makes you the best person to make this choice, not your podiatrist, not your personal trainer, not your massage therapist, not even me. But I'm not just going to say, listen to your body and leave you there, because that's a fluffy, ambiguous statement. What I do want to do with this episode is I'm going to walk you through what I have as a 3-step system that I like to call Does Your Body Like Your Shoes? And this is a mini workshop that I ran online during COVID, actually. It was in 2021, and it was a live online session that I developed to address this question that I get so much. And in this live session, we walked through that 3-step system, and I got people in that session to actually bring a couple of pairs of shoes and to test them out so they could get some information about, does this shoe work for me to support my best healthy mechanics in my whole body, or is this shoe working against me and contributing to some problems or not helping me progress on the things I'm trying to address in my movement practice, rehabilitation with my physio, or my goals with my body in general. And I love using the system because it has personally helped me become a more informed and empowered shoe wearer. I use it with my clients who are open-minded to the process. And yeah, I am the weird person who goes to the shoe store and I use this system in the shoe store. And the last time I went to buy shoes, actually, I was doing these assessments in the shoes and I got the shoe store salesman to take videos of me so I could watch them. And he happened to be actually a running coach and interested in gait mechanics. So he was chiming in with his, oh yeah, when you're wearing these shoes, this looks different. And it was pretty fun. So you might even just go to the shoe store and make new friends using this system. But stay tuned to the end of this episode because if you are curious about being guided through my Does Your Body Like Your Shoes shoe testing system, I'm going to bring back the online workshop and I'm planning to run it live online on the Zoom on Friday, June 26th, Australia time. So for most of the world, that'll be one day earlier on Thursday, June 25th. And if you're around, I would love to have you in the session and take you through the system in your body. And my hope is that you'll never have to wonder about who's right or wrong in the shoe guidance world. Nobody is. Only your body knows. So I'll tell you a bit more about the session if you want to attend. I'll tell you a bit more about the details at the end of this. But for this session or in this episode, I'm going to walk you through it. And I think that if you already are a movement detective-minded person or you've studied anatomy and motion, this will make perfect sense to you and you won't even need to attend the live session with me. You can just instantly put this into action. But I do have a workbook I created as well so you can test your shoes and chart your information. So stay tuned so I can tell you about how to get that. Anyway, before we get into me actually telling you about the system and how to use it, this just all reminds me, another story, it reminds me of a time when someone gave me unsolicited shoe advice and it really pissed me off. Do you like getting unsolicited advice? I hate it. Well, hate's a strong word. It takes a lot of energy for me to suppress looking on the outside that I'm very pissed off when someone gives me advice and to just smile and nod. I have a very bad response to it, especially when it's on something that I actually happen to be informed about. Anyway, this was during a period in my life when I had a really bad problem with my foot. You've probably heard me talk about this before, but it was this nervy irritation that came on very, very suddenly. It came on suddenly after receiving a very fear-inducing phone call, I might say. So that's a whole story in itself that I might tell on another day. But anyway, my foot started to hurt, and over the course of that day, it became so painful I couldn't stand up for a few months. I ended up, after the sudden onset of this pain, I ended up in the hospital because I was so scared about what was happening. Obviously, the hospital and all the testing I got told me nothing. But it was really, really painful. Just touching the floor was royally uncomfortable, and the only comfortable thing I could do was lie down. So throughout that period of about a year or so, I just spent every day lying on the floor. And in many ways, that was a gift. So I wasn't really walking around that much. And gradually, as I was able to take my first small walk, I realized that my previous favorite shoes, which I believe at the time were Chuck Taylor's, Converse Chuck Taylor high tops, they weren't going to be cushy enough in my current hypersensitized foot state. And it happened that the only footwear I had enough padding to feel comfortable standing in were my hiking boots. So that became the year that I wore hiking boots everywhere, no matter the occasion, no matter the outfit. And I like to think that that was the summer that I made summer dresses and hiking boots look real good together. But anyway, so that year I also attended a Barral Institute Visceral Manipulation course, VM1. There was a ton of smart people in the course and a lot of really do-gooding practitioners as you meet in these courses who just want to share all of their knowledge about everything they know and their love of helping bodies, which is awesome. And also it can be kind of annoying, and I'll get to that. But it was a really great course. I was there with a few of my friends too and colleagues that I had also taken anatomy and motion with. and who had also been on my care team, who were helping me with my body with treatment and emotional support as I was having my existential crisis around my foot and my identity of being a person who can no longer walk. Anyway, I had just been used as a demonstration in the course for the cecum techniques. Cecum is the first part of your large intestine, in case you didn't know. And I was excitingly identified to be in the minority of women who have a tight bit of connective tissue that connects your ovary and your cecum together. Yay. I had all the telltale signs like SI joint pain on the right, lower back restriction, right hip pain, etc. And in the class, I told the story about how my foot was really fucked and that it made a lot of sense that all the nervy irritation could very well be related to the clusterfuck of organ adhesions in the right side of my lower abdomen, as well as the lack of blood flow in my foot. It was cold all the time. And so it was a massive aha moment for me that I'll never forget. And that course was so inspiring for me. But then later on, after me being the demo on the table for the course, one of these aforementioned do-gooding, advice-giving practitioner gentlemen came up to me and he said, you shouldn't be wearing hiking boots if you want, I'm totally making his voice up, by the way, if you want your right foot to get better, you need to be wearing more minimalistic shoes. And you can imagine with my reaction to receiving unsolicited advice in areas of life that I'm informed. I was raging under the surface, but I just stared at him and smiled and nodded. I was a little bit too sympathetically activated to actually create a nice response. So I just smiled and nodded and let him talk, and then he eventually left. And my two friends that were with me also just kind of stared and nodded because they knew my journey and they were helping me, and all of us have the same kind of paradigm on feet and shoes and know the nuance of the situation that I was in and the individual nature of it for everyone. And after the dude walked away, probably not receiving the gratification and thankful response from me that he wanted, my one friend said, "Oh my God, I don't think he even knows who he was talking to," which is not to blow smoke up my ass, but my friends knew my journey and they knew that prior to my foot problem, I had actually loved being barefoot and wearing minimalist shoes. And I happened to have some understanding of how to help feet and bodies and happened to teach courses on how the feet move. And we all had the same paradigm of let your body choose the best shoes for you. And there is no one answer. So that's what they meant when they said, I don't think he knows who he was even talking to. And we had a good laugh about it. And anyway, I tell that story because I want you to know that I'm not here to tell you all about my favorite pairs of shoes. I had been through that phase where I wore only hiking boots for a few years. Now in my life, I happen to be back wearing minimalist shoes, but I don't support wearing them for everyone. And I never was a person who thought that I would wear minimalist shoes. I don't have a strong opinion about a particular brand or style, only that I want you to have a system that you can use that puts you in the power seat about making decisions that are best for you. You can learn to trust your body and make it more robust to your shoes and to your life. And that last statement actually is something that I learned from Gary Ward, the creator of Anatomy in Motion. And Gary actually inspired me to create this system, so I really have to credit him completely with it. I think it all started when I was in Vancouver taking an Anatomy in Motion course, and I think we were walking through Gastown, and we were on the topic of shoes. I asked him, how do you know if you're wearing the shoe that supports your biomechanics? I was really curious what was his special sauce for shoe choosing, being the foot expert that he is. And he told me that what he would do is do his movement assessments, i.e. the Anatomy in Motion check-ins that we learn in his courses, and do those assessments wearing different pairs of shoes to see what they might affect against his baseline for his movement that he knows because he has spent many, many years getting a sense of his movement baselines and what is his normal. So what that looks like is maybe you put on a pair of shoes and they limit your hip movements, or maybe you even notice that a pair of shoes restricts how your neck can move, and that can all be traced back to how it blocks maybe your foot from pronating and your hip from being able to adduct well on that side, which causes a compensation in your neck to make up for it. And And so I thought this was really genius and really simple, and I didn't know why he wasn't teaching that as a standalone workshop. So I decided to make one myself. So even if you don't attend this live session that I'll be teaching in a few weeks, I think that even if you run through, or if you run with the ideas in this episode, you'll have a really great framework to start putting it into practice. But before I talk you through the Does Your Body Like Your Shoes system, I also have a few opinions about what general attributes make a good shoe generally. So I want to share the top 5 things I believe to be important in selecting a shoe. But let me tell you about the system. As I mentioned, it's based on Gary Ward's flow motion model, which is a map of how the entire body moves through the gait cycle. This is a model of ideal closed chain joint mechanics, and most of us aren't moving with this ideal coordination of joint motions. However, the closer we can get to moving as per the flow motion model mechanics, people tend to feel better. They tend to move more efficiently. They have less compression here, tension there, restriction here, asymmetries there. And a component of this model that really brings it to life is the understanding of closed chain foot mechanics, which means the specific way that all of the joints of the feet move in 3 dimensions whilst on the ground in the 2 main foot shapes, pronation and supination. So in the Does Your Body Like Your Shoes system, I use the exact same joint motion closed chain check-in that is taught in the anatomy and motion courses because it assesses the movement that your body needs to be able to do in a symmetrical way on the right and left sides of your body for your body to be able to move with less strain and problems in the gait cycle, because that's why we wear shoes. Most of us wear them to walk and stand in. So it makes sense that you'd like to assess how your body is moving in your shoes with a system that was specifically designed to assess the fundamental components of what your body needs to do to take a footstep. It's a simple 3-step process, and this is really not rocket science. Step 1, you need to assess your foot mechanics. How well can you pronate and supinate? How are your feet organized in your static alignment? Are you standing with 1 foot pronated, 1 foot supinating? Where's the pressure in your feet? And if we go and assess how you pronate, do we get the check boxes ticked for all the mechanics we want to see? And same with supination. With every footstep you take, regardless of wearing your shoes or not, we want your foot to be able to pronate and then supinate, and then pronate and then supinate. So if that's not happening as a barefoot baseline, we can't really expect it to happen any better in a pair of shoes. That's really our first step. Assess your feet in motion. Are they able to do what they're supposed to do? And if they're not, we probably need to do a little bit of work on that to make your feet more robust to any shoe. And then, it might not even matter what pair of shoes you wear if your feet are able to move well. Step 2 of the system is to get your barefoot baseline for 3D full body movement. So in this system, you'll be standing up barefoot, testing your 3-dimensional movement potential from your pelvis, your hips, your spine, your shoulders, and your neck to see how you move uninfluenced by your shoes. This baseline may be asymmetrical, and in your baseline, you may have pain with some movements, and that's all okay. We just want to know what it is right now so that we can compare with honesty how it feels with different shoes on. Do things feel better, worse, or same? And that's really good information to make a choice with. So the movements of the pelvis are our 3 dimensions of sagittal, frontal, transverse plane motions, anterior, posterior tilts, frontal plane hikes and drops and shifts, and transverse plane rotations right and left. Same with the rib cage, which we use to assess the spine, lumbar and thoracic spine. We have sagittal plane, frontal plane, transverse plane movement in the rib cage, and same with the neck, which we assess by moving the skull, sagittal plane, frontal plane, transverse plane, and this is what I'll walk through in the workshop, but if you've taken anatomy in motion, you already know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you may just like to hop on to this live little workshop with me. Now, step 3, after we've gotten your barefoot baseline, is where you get to have fun. Fun either with your closet and your current shoes or fun in the shoe shop out buying new shoes is we just put on different pairs of shoes and repeat your 3D movement assessments to see how they might be impacting your mechanics. I think it's really fun. Different shoes might affect your mechanics in different ways. For example, remember those hiking boots that I told you about that the dude in the VM class was hating on? What was cool about those shoes when I ran them through the system is they actually helped my neck rotation feel more symmetrical. And more recently, I think this is somewhere in my Instagram feed, I was testing out a pair of Blundstone boots because I noticed whenever I wore them, my right foot hurt more. And I wanted to know what exactly in my mechanics was being impacted by that. So I put on my Blundstones. I tried out my movement assessments, and what stood out in a big way was that my spine rotation to the right became much more exaggerated when I had those boots on, which was triggering my foot pain because that spine rotation to the right was part of a pattern that was compressing my lower back on the right, which was impacting my blood flow and nerve supply to my right foot. So that was really helpful to know, and it informed my movement practice that, okay, so my body is a little bit susceptible to being thrown out of whack in my rotations. In particular, my right rotation is a weak spot for me. I just get stuck there. So I need to find some strategies in my movement practice to help me find my rotation to the left, which I really was struggling to do. So that was really cool. And now I'm happy to say that with that information that informed both my shoe wearing and my movement practice decision making, I now can wear my Blundstone boots. I'm in a phase of life where Blundstones are a possibility for me, which actually makes me really happy because I bought those Blundstones when I had my really bad right foot problem. I bought them as a gift to myself. I told myself, oh man, if I'm ever able to wear any other pair of shoes again, other than hiking boots, I really would love to wear these Blundstones. It's just my style. I like them. I think they look cool. But I was really in a bit of a hopeless place where I was almost resigned to wearing hiking boots for the rest of my life. But I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to buy these boots. One day I'll be able to wear them. And now I can. For now, anything could happen. Anything could change. But for right now, I'm celebrating. So that right there might be enough information for you to go ahead and try out a few pairs of shoes. If you've already studied anatomy and motion, no excuses. Get out there. You know what to do. But what I'd like you to know is that this system turns your own awareness of your body into a really powerful tool, but it doesn't make it easy to do. I'm not saying that the first time you try this system, you're going to get really clear information. The better awareness you have of your body, the better the system will work for you. And the fact that you're even listening to this podcast means you probably have some dark zones of awareness. Usually the problems we have with our systems, with our bodies, are because there's something we're missing, there's something we're not aware of, and we're having trouble seeing it objectively, and that's why we're looking for information to fill in that blank spot that we might not even know what the blank spot is. All that we know is that there's something we're missing. All of us have a difficult time with self-objectivity in our movement assessments, and developing this self-objectivity is a skill that might take some time to practice. So you might be doing this movement assessment that I described. You might be going through your pelvis motions, your anterior, posterior tilts, and you might not know what you're feeling. In the session, I'll be asking you to get a sense of both the range of motion and the quality. So let's say you go into your anterior pelvic tilt and you're like, all right. And you go into your posterior pelvic tilt and you're like, oh, yep. And I ask, which one felt easier? And you think, I don't know, they both felt pretty similar. And I ask you, how would you describe the feeling of it? And you're like, I don't know, just moving my pelvis. Like, that's not really good information to make any decisions with. There will be a difference in the range of motion. One will probably be easier than the other, and there will be some sensations that go along with it that are useful for you, but you just might not have never been asked to pay attention to them before. And these subtleties are what helps us make decisions. There's also a whole set of coupled mechanics in the body that should take place just by doing that simple anterior and posterior pelvic tilt. And if you're not sure what those connections are, then you're also not going to get that much information from the assessments. So don't worry, this process of developing awareness, like useful, actual awareness of your body, not the fluffy listen to your body advice. There is real information mechanically and sensationally that you can get from your body that will help you to make decisions about your shoes and your movement practice. It just might take some time to learn what those are for you. And this is where having a guide or having a little bit of mechanical understanding and doing some education can really be helpful. But also it just takes time. I remember it took me about 3 or 4 years to even get clarity on where I was feeling the pressure under my feet when I stood still. This was extremely frustrating for me because I was in a course and people all around me were telling me in detail, oh yes, I'm feeling the pressure is most under the lateral side of my medial right sesamoid, and I have about 70% of my weight in my lateral calcaneus on the right. And I was feeling, I have no idea where my weight in my feet is. I don't even know. And it took so long, like I said, 3 or 4 years even to get any clarity. And I made it a daily practice to check in with my feet. And I found some tools along the way that helped me to document what I was feeling in my feet. And now I can tell you with clarity where I'm feeling pressure in my feet. But it just took time and willingness to get there and put in the consistent practice of gaining body awareness, which is not sexy, but it is the ultimate source of inner wisdom. So this was also a testament to the amount of noise and confusion in my system that was getting in the way of my interoceptive abilities. So if you go through this system and you feel like you don't get good information from your body, you might be like me, and your system just might be a chaotic clusterfuck of noise, past injuries, pain symptoms, restrictions like big chunks of your spine that just don't move. You might have a lot of sympathetic activation due to unresolved emotions that you're stuffing down into your right foot that flare up when you get a fear-inducing phone call. Like there might be layers upon layers of compensation strategies for past injuries, and it makes it really difficult to actually listen to the truth of your body. So to get better information from your body, you may need to address that noise, address what's there so that you can listen to what's there. If that's you, I have some recommendations about what you might like to do that I'll share at the end of this episode. But because sometimes the things we're tuning into in our movement assessments aren't hugely distinct differences in range of motion that stand out in a big way. They might be more subtle, like where your weight shifts in your feet when you move, or what muscles you feel, or whether you subtly compensate, I said that weirdly, compensate into a different plane of motion. Instead of staying purely in the sagittal plane, for example, maybe you rotate, but you're not aware of it because it's just your normal. It might not feel like anything worth paying attention to, but you wouldn't know what you don't know until someone brings it to your attention. And this is the value of having a guide, or at the very least, do what I do, film yourself or watch yourself in the mirror doing these check-ins, and you'll get a lot more objective clarity. So if you're someone who struggles to interpret your body and feel things, you're not alone, because that was me for years, and I feel like it's a skill you can learn with practice over time. So don't give up on the system. I recommend that you practice again and again and really hone your interoceptive skills. This is Movement Detectivery 101. It might take a while to start hearing the subtle cues from your body, but once you can hear them, it's a superpower that you have for life. The system I'm describing, it really does work. I promise you that. But you may need some help developing your body awareness to actually get the most out of it. So give yourself some time. Don't expect that the first time you do it, you'll get mind-blowing information, but you might. And remember, I have some suggestions for what to do to get some guidance that I'll share at the end of the session so you can help to clear the noise out of your system and get better at listening to your body. And the last thing I want to say about this system for shoe testing is that concurrently to choosing shoes that don't mess up your biomechanics, the main goal is not to feel like you have to wear a certain type of shoe or you're doomed, but to actually make your body more robust to any shoe you want by working on your movement mechanics. There's no need to label any shoe as good or bad. There's only what works for you and what doesn't right now, and this can change. Sometimes you might consciously enter into situations where you're totally aware you're wearing a shoe that wreaks havoc on your body, like high heels or my Blundstones. Maybe for work, you have a uniform or a mandatory shoe that you have to wear, and there's no way around that. But you'll want to be aware of how that shoe is interfering with your mechanics so that you can deliberately use what I like to call a post-shoe unwind movement session to help your body recover and gain some resiliency to wearing that shoe again in the future. So you can use a movement practice to make your body more robust to any shoe and serve as a post-shoe unwind so that your body can get to baseline after you take your shoes off. And I hope that gives you a little bit of confidence and comfort that you don't need to give away your personal power to shoe recommendation wankers out there. And you don't need to fear that if you wear the wrong shoe, it will permanently mess with your body. That's just not true. And it really irritates me when I see people scaremongering about all the shoes are bad except these shoes, like that practitioner who had the shoe list. Just like, it doesn't matter what shoe you wear, they have to be on this list. No, that's not true. I think what is true is that you can learn to trust your body and its wisdom. And yes, your body has its own inner wisdom. And you can make it more robust to your shoes, any shoes. And you can make your body more robust to your life by having a practice that builds your body awareness and restores appropriate biomechanics. There are tools and systems that can support you to do this, and I'm honored that I am a person who can share those with you. Okay, but now I'd like to share with you, now that I'm off my soapbox, I'd like to share with you the top 5 things. I realize as I say that, the top 5 things. These are my top 5 things that I look for in a shoe. So you might have other things you add to this list, and also feel free to tell me that I'm full of shit if you don't agree. But I think these are pretty common sense recommendations for what to look for in a shoe. On top of, or in addition to going through the Does My Body Like My Shoe system, these 5 things might guide you in your shoe selection process. If you can get a 5 out of 5, then I think you're solid on this list. So, thing number 1, your foot should be able to pronate and supinate in your shoe. If your shoe is too restrictive, that's the main thing. If it's too restrictive, like it's fitting too tightly, I guess that comes down to the right size, like get the right size of shoe. Your foot should be able to pronate and supinate if there's enough space in your shoe to move. So know that when you fully pronate your foot will lengthen and widen. So I think that something useful to do is when you are shoe shopping, you should make sure that when you actually bear weight into your foot and your foot spreads and lengthens, if it can, if it can't, it should be able to. But if it can, and you can feel that your foot has space to do that, that's great. So get the right size of shoe and make sure that the model of the shoe actually allows for your foot to pronate and supinate in it. This also goes with orthotic selections. So if you are wearing an arch support that is meant to hold up your arch, don't. Well, maybe, I don't know. You got to listen to your body. But if your shoe completely prevents you from letting your foot pronate and lowering the arch, that might be a problem long term. It might be temporary, a good solution, but long term, I'm skeptical about that. And likewise, if it feels like for whatever reason, the shoe locks your foot into a pressure on the inside edge and you can't supinate your foot and let your arch lift, that's also not great. Some people have come to me and said that one of their feet gets sore on the top of their foot because it rubs on the top of their foot because that's the foot that has a higher arch in it. So the right size of shoe should both accommodate for the height of supination when the arch lifts. It shouldn't be compressive on the top of your foot, on the dorsal surface, and also it should accommodate the spreading of your foot so both supination and pronation can take place without irritation. Consider your skin. Like, the number of foot problems I've had that aren't related to mechanics necessarily, but are related to my skin getting irritated because my shoe didn't fit for proper mechanics to take place. Oh man, the number of infections I've had on hikes that could have been alleviated if I just had a wide enough shoe. Anyway, and I think I'm guilty of choosing shoes that I liked the look of, but they didn't have my size. But I was like, you know what? It's not that much smaller than what I'd wear, so they'll stretch out a little bit. So I bought this style anyway, but it just wasn't the right size of shoe. Anyway, number 2, I think it's important for the sole of the shoe to be as thin as possible, but as thick and supportive as necessary and for your comfort level. I think it's important to be able to feel the ground personally. You might not like feeling the ground, but I like it to feel like I'm barefoot. That's just how I spent my childhood, was running around outside in bare feet, and I really like the way it feels. You might not like it, but I think it's important if we're going for foot movement that is as natural or as, I don't like the word natural necessary, but as close to barefoot as possible. I think a sole that is thin is quite useful. That said, you might be like me and the thinnest sole you can tolerate is your thick-soled hiking boots. So you really want to listen to your body on that and know that this will change over time and depending on the context you're in. Walking outside on concrete and wearing ultra minimalistic shoes might not be very comfortable, but if you're walking out in the countryside or on the grass or in the park or on a hike in nature, then a thin sole might work a lot better for you. Number 3 is similar to number 1. We want to make sure that the toe box of your shoe is wide enough for your foot to fully pronate in it. When you pronate, as I said before, your foot fully widens. So if you are doing your work of making sure your feet can pronate in your movement practice, then you want to make sure that your shoe is, especially in the toe box, wide enough to accommodate that spreading. When I was in my Chuck Taylor sneaker phase, I recognized that those are really narrow shoes compared to other shoes, and they probably weren't the best for me. They kind of squished my metatarsals together. But I just was really attached to this style. I thought they looked really cool, and I still do. So maybe I would just buy a size bigger. Or if they have, I don't know if they have wide sizes now. But anyway, make sure the toe box, meaning the space between the 1st to 5th metatarsals horizontally, is enough for your foot to fully pronate in. Fun fact, kind of an aside, but as it relates to, I do craniosacral therapy is one of my main modalities, and we were taught, if you ever have had braces, that, a lot of, when you get braces, you don't usually have a craniosacral therapy person there making sure that your skull and your facial bones and your jaw all can move correctly, meaning that we need to have expansion between the cranial bones and compression in the cranial bones, and it's a cyclical cycle of expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction. And in a perfect world, similarly to a shoe, we would fit those braces for the phase in the craniosacral rhythm when the skull is expanding and all the cranial bones are getting more space between them. You wouldn't want to fit the braces to the phase in the craniosacral rhythm where your skull bones are all compressed together, because that'll limit the proper pumping of the cerebrospinal fluid that needs to take place. So I just thought that was a cool fact that I learned, and it's really interesting working with a couple of people lately who have mouth appliances and are seeking help for that process. Anyway, number 4, things to look for in a shoe. This is the does my body like my shoe system. Your body mechanics should not be negatively affected by your shoes. So I've already talked about this in length. So number 5, and I think this is important, you have to like the style of the shoe. Don't get so attached to the style that you're overlooking the other 4 points, like my Converse sneakers that I loved but probably weren't working for me, or when I bought a pair of boots that were a size too small because I liked the style but they didn't have my size. I've never had a good experience long-term with those choices. But it doesn't mean you can't wear those shoes, just that you need to be making a conscious, informed choice and may need to schedule in your deliberate post-shoe unwind routine. Which is my segue to talking about what do you do when you have to wear a pair of shoes that you know are going to fuck with your body, but you have no choice, so you're just going to wear the shoes. That's totally fine. I think you should have the freedom to do that if you want to or if you have to. And maybe due to the constraints of your work life, you need to wear shoes that you've tested through the system and you know that they wreak havoc on your lower back. But you don't have much of a choice because they're part of your uniform. That's okay. This is where your movement practice really comes in. So what does a post-shoe unwind routine look like? It looks like any movement practice that you'd use to support your body, but it's a little bit more pinpointed at specifically what is affected by your shoes. This is where your body awareness comes in and going through the system and knowing what your susceptible movements and parts of your body are to being thrown out of whack by specific shoes. We're looking at creating a customized movement practice that addresses the specific movement limitations that your body has and aims to give you back what is missing for them. So, for example, I used to wear a pair of minimalist shoes. This was when impressionable, naive, enthusiastic Monica was actually conditioned by a person that was into Vivo Barefoot at the time to believing that I should get a pair of Vivo Barefoots, and this was before that my body was really in a mechanical good place to tolerate them. I was pretty asymmetrical. I still had a lot of pain symptoms, but I got these Vivo shoes because I wanted to hop on the bandwagon. I didn't want to be left out. So I could only tolerate wearing those shoes for about 30 minutes, and then my left foot and hip would just start to hurt. So the first step for me was to understand that, okay, also there's a time limit for how long I can wear these shoes. I can't expect to go for a 2-hour walk wearing these. So that was for thing number 1. But then I needed to understand what movements does my body struggle to do after wearing these shoes that differs from my baseline, and then find a creative way to give them back with a movement practice. So let's say after 30 minutes of wearing them, I test my body again through the system. I find that in my foot assessments, my left foot is no longer able to access pronation. My arch is rigid. It doesn't lengthen when I lower. It doesn't lengthen and lower when I put my weight in it. And I also noticed that my pelvis no longer has the ability to hike on the left side anymore. So I'm missing some hip mechanics and spine mechanics on the left, and I'm missing some foot mechanics on the left. Namely, I need to give back foot pronation, I need to give back pelvis hike, and I need to give back spine lateral flexion to the left. So to support my body's needs, and so that I don't go around on the rest of the week with a left foot that doesn't pronate and a pelvic that only hikes on one side, feeling lopsided, I'm going to include those specific movements in my post-shoe unwind routine. The beauty of this is that over time, working on those vulnerable to disruption mechanics regularly starts to create positive change in my body that makes it even more resilient to the shoes so that I can wear them for longer with less repercussions. I have an online program called Liberated Body, and this process is exactly what I teach. How to get the awareness of your baseline and develop your mechanical understanding so that you can create your own custom movement practice that gives you back the joint mechanics your body struggles with. So you're moving as more of a whole and complete self, and get the tools to be your own best practitioner that can assess your needs and creatively come up with movement solutions to address them. So I'll tell you a bit more about Liberated Body at the end of this. But you might be asking, what about orthotics? You can use this system, does my body like my shoes, to test your orthotics. Does your body like your orthotics? It's the exact same process. Get your barefoot baseline, and then put on your shoes with your orthotics in and test. I'm not against orthotics. I'm pro doing what your body feels best with and knowing that your system is constantly changing, and what feels good this month might feel bad the next. So we always need to be checking in and have a system that lets us track what's changing and what's not. So a few years ago, I was working on the care team for a client alongside a massage therapist and a personal trainer, which was really great. He was a cameraman, and so his job was really demanding on his body. He was spending long days on his feet, having to stand very still in a particular position. He was filming a lot of the time in surgery theaters, so it was very precision work, and he'd have to hold very still. And he had really bad pain in his feet and his back, and orthotics actually helped him make it through his long days. But because our care team were all very, very encouraging of, getting your body back to not needing crutches, supporting the mechanics that you don't need to wear orthotics or braces or things anymore that help you, but give your body back the power. And so we were having discussions with him about not relying on them as a long-term fix, because they're not really going to change how you're moving. They're just going to support something in the short term, but it's not going to change how you're moving. And so we also wanted him to know that he should work on his movement foibles, limitations in his feet and his back, and then gradually shift him into moving less arch support and more just normal, less orthotic-y shoes. And he was totally on board with this. He could see the sense in this. He could see the value in this. But it also wasn't realistic for him to jump right away into wearing normal shoes. He needed those orthotics so that he could actually show up and do his job, because this is a survival thing. We need to make money. We need to go to work, and we need to conform with what we need to do for work. We can't just say, fuck it, I'm not going to wear orthotics and I'm going to take a year off work and heal. That's not totally realistic. Anyway, it's not black and white, and whether you should or should not wear orthotics, it's what do I need right now, this moment, what will work best for me, and being open to reevaluating along the way. So this is where having the tools to be able to check in with ourselves using simple movement assessments and body scanning is really helpful, so that we're not relying on other people to always be telling us what's best. Okay, so I've been talking for a while. In summary, here's what I'd like you to take away from this episode. 1, it's important to build self-awareness to navigate the system. But 2, the system is going to give you really good information about your body, how it's doing right now, what shoes work for you, and also how to create a movement practice that both supports your body after you wear a pair of shoes that might not work for you, and to be able to be more resilient to any shoes in the future. And if you're asking now, I talked a lot about getting a barefoot baseline, doing these movement assessments. So if you're asking, how do I get my barefoot baseline? What are these movement assessments? How do I know if my feet are pronating and supinating? I need a visual walkthrough of this check-in system, because I hear you, it sounds great, but I don't actually know what this looks like. Fear not, because do you remember when I said I'll be running this as a live training? I'm going to walk you through the does your body like your shoe system to help you get started on testing out some shoes. So if that sounds fun to you, and if you'd like to get the info to join in the session and hang out with me, I'd like you to go to monicavolkmar.com/shoes. That's MonicaVolkmar.com/shoes. The session is going to be June 26th at 9 a.m. Melbourne time. So get out your time zone converter, because Australia's time is in the future. So that'll be June 20, the day before. So Thursday, June 25th, I think, at 7 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Get your time zone converter, because time zone math is hard sometimes. Don't worry if you can't make it live. I'll be doing a recording of the session. But if you can come live, please do, because I'll be making time for some questions at the end. And I might even have a surprise bonus for some live attendees. Also, you can come and laugh at me, because I'm going to be filming this outside, and it's winter right now in Melbourne, and so it gets a bit cold. So you get to see me suffer. If you're a masochist, you might enjoy this. Okay, I also mentioned my Liberated Body program. So you may like to check that out if you're interested more in learning about how to create a shoe unwind routine or how to support your body being more resilient to any pairs of shoes. This is all based on the anatomy and motion system for moving your body in alignment with how we were meant to move in the gait cycle in closed chain joint mechanics. That sounds really technical, but I make it really, really simple and easy to follow. You don't need to be a PhD in biomechanics. You don't need to know anything about biomechanics. I've had both physiotherapists and people that just want to not run with knee pain, who are not movement professionals, join the workshop and equally get something good out of it, because it's not about intellectualizing it, it's about feeling it in your body. I think that's the main thing that's missing for a lot of people, whether they are a professional in body work and movement, or if they're just a normal person who doesn't want to hurt anymore. The main thing is feeling your body, being able to explore movement. And again, that body awareness piece is massive. So that's what I help people with in Liberated Body. If you'd like to check that out, go to monicavolkmar.com/liberated-body-workshop. Okay, that's all. Let me know what you think. What did you think? Do you think this is a useful system? Do you think I'm full of shit? Have you already, in 2021, when I ran the workshop the first time, did you actually do it? Did you like it? Did you use it? Did you find this helpful? Let me know. I'm dying to know. I crave validation. Shoot me a message on social media. I'm on Instagram @monvolkmar. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. And do you have a question you want answered? Please let me know, because I'm happy to answer questions on this podcast in a upcoming Q&A episode. Just message me on Instagram or shoot me an email. Monica@monicavolkmar.com. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have a great day.